Hey, campfire crew, let's get it on.
Children of the night, what music they make.
There is something not human out there, by acceptable border. I was about 9 years old living in Suriname. At the time, and probably still rings true today, it's a poor country with one major city and the rest of the area is very rural. We lived in one of those rural areas. You couldn't even really call it a town, and our closest neighbor in front of our house and the next door neighbor was miles away. We also lived next to the rainforest. There's no reason for anyone to drive by our area. There's nothing out there but a dirt road and bushes and trees all around. We also didn't have TV or any entertainment at the house. My siblings and I would spend our free time reading books and playing with toys or riding our bikes. And for years, it remained that way, a quiet place with little to no visitors. One day, I saw something that changed everything for me. A little background about myself. I'd always had experiences with ghosts as a kid, and still do as an adult, but rarely. I don't seek them out, but I've had my hair pulled, my legs scratched, and words whispered to me when no one was around. I just got used to it, and the occurrences were rare, so I didn't think too much about it. Back to the story. I was watching the yard dogs play when I saw a white male jogging past our house on the dirt road. The road leads to a dead end, and I'd never seen this person before. My parents are Indian, and they lived alone. So I asked my mom about the man, and she didn't see him and didn't know who I was talking about. He was wearing jogging clothes, I remember. He had shorts on. And our dogs are guard dogs, but they didn't bark or even notice him. I couldn't see his face, and I didn't think much about it until a few days later, when I saw him again, jogging on the dirt road passing the house. I immediately ran to my bike and decided to follow him. And again, the dogs were quiet for some reason. I don't really know why I followed him. It wasn't curiosity. I didn't tell my mom or anyone, which I usually would have done. I just left with my bike, going slowly behind him, maybe about 12 feet away or so. I didn't hear any footsteps. And when you run on the dirt road, you usually hear something. Gravel, dirt, anything. But I didn't hear anything. He didn't turn around, and he didn't acknowledge me, even though I was obviously behind him following closely. I should have turned back. What was wrong with me? I couldn't stop myself. Something told me to keep following him. And neither of us said anything to each other. We made it to the dead end of the dirt road, and he kept running into the grass and straight toward the trees. The grass was tall, about mid-thigh to hip height. There were no sounds and no rustling. The grass was barely bending around him as he trampled through. He kept going. I got off my bike, and as I was about to take 1 foot forward to step on the grass to follow him, I heard my mom's voice to my left, loud and clear as day, calling my name. "Maggie!" I turned around and said, "What?" No one was there. No one was behind me. I turned back facing forward, and the man was gone too. There was no trace of him. I was out there alone. I felt a deep chill inside and immediately hopped on my bike and rode home as fast as I could. When I got home, my mom was cooking, and she had never left the house. I never saw that man again. I truly believe that thing I saw was not human. And I believe I was charmed somehow, lured out of my house on purpose. It was not a ghost or a spirit. There are some entities in this world that can't be understood or explained, and I hope I never run into it again. Decades later, I met with a psychic medium who told me that I have a guardian spirit protecting me, an older woman. Not sure if it's my late great-grandma. Not sure how much of what she said is true. But whatever snapped me out of it when I saw that man jogging by, I am forever grateful for it. Ball on the Roof, submitted by Jimmy P. I'd like to bring everybody back to the summer of 1969. The Cubs were making a run for the pennant, and I, as a 14-year-old boy, was along for the ride. My friends call me Jimmy P. I hung out with my guys Dave, Donnie, and Jamie, and we lived to play sports. Every day we met at Jefferson Elementary School to display our talents in baseball, basketball, football, or whatever was in season. Because it was August, we were in baseball mode. One late afternoon, we met to play a game we simply called fast pitch. We played using a rubber ball and a bat, with a square strike zone painted on the back wall of a school building. The pitcher would stand roughly 70 feet away, hurling the ball toward the box, while the batter tried to drive it past the outfielders. It was a 9-inning grind that usually took over an hour. We started the game just before dusk, hoping to finish before our parents expected us home. The only drawback was the roof. If a batter hit a high foul ball behind him, it would land onto the school roof. Most kids would have kissed the ball goodbye, but I was the tallest and most athletic. Scaling the walls to retrieve our equipment had become my specialty. The first roof was easy enough, but the second roof required a Batman move. You had to run at the wall, jump off the first wall, and then haul yourself up. I was proud of that feat, and my buddies were always impressed. Sure enough, during our game, the ball vanished onto the upper roof, and I was delegated to go get it. As I leapt to scale the second wall, I landed awkwardly, and a sharp, sickening snap echoed through my leg. I collapsed onto the gravel surface of the roof, clutching my ankle. I knew instantly it was more than a sprain. The pain was hot and throbbing. Just as I retrieved the ball, I heard the guys yelling from below. Their parents wanted them home before dark, and too embarrassed to admit I was crippled and stuck, I called back, "Take off. I'll be down in a second. We'll talk tomorrow." I watched them disappear around the corner of the building. As the sun dipped below the horizon, a heavy, suffocating silence settled over the schoolyard. I tried to turn onto my stomach to hang from the edge, but the sheer agony in my ankle made it impossible. A 6-foot drop felt like a death sentence for my leg. I sat back and waited, praying for a stray adult or a janitor to walk by so I could ask for a ladder. Nobody came. The sky turned from bruised purple to pitch black. The fright began to set in as the temperature dropped. I started screaming for help, but my voice seemed to vanish into the empty night air. I thought of my mom, a total worrywart, pacing the floor at home. I hadn't told her exactly where I was or who I was with. Hours passed. Without a watch, I guessed it was 10 or 11 p.m. It was so dark I couldn't even see my own shoes. The only sound was the rhythmic, leathery flapping of bats circling above my head, their high-pitched squeaks intensifying my panic. Then a pair of headlights cut through the darkness. A car pulled into the back lot and parked. I leaned toward the edge, ready to shout, thinking it was just some high school kids looking for a place to make out. But when the doors opened, the atmosphere changed instantly. A man climbed out of the driver's side, and a young girl scrambled out the other. Before I could draw breath to yell, he was after her. She began to run, her sneakers hitting the pavement in a frantic rhythm. She begged him to leave her alone, crying that she would just find her own way home. He stopped, and his voice was cold and low when he said, "You ain't going home." He walked to the trunk and pulled out a baseball bat, and I watched, paralyzed, as he stalked towards her. She turned to flee, but he swung, and there was a sickening heavy thud as the wood met her ribs. Then he swung again, hitting her across the knees. The sound was horrific, like a giant tree branch snapping in half. I tried to scream, but my throat felt like it was filled with sand, and it wasn't until he lifted the bat for a third strike that my voice finally broke through the terror. "Hey, I can see you! I'm getting the cops!" The guy froze. He craned his neck, staring up into the blackness. He couldn't see my face, but he knew exactly where the voice had come from. He didn't run. Instead, he pointed the bat at the roof. "You're next," he growled. "I'm going to kill you." I backed away from the edge, my heart hammering against my ribs, and I heard his heavy footsteps move toward the wall. I knew he was older and taller, and the climb that was hard for me would be easy for him. I heard the scrape of his boots against the brick as he scaled the first roof, and I scrambled around the dark surface until my hand closed around a large, jagged brick. I crawled back to the edge, my breath coming in jagged gasps, and suddenly a set of fingers gripped the gravel of the upper ledge. They were thick and strained, pulling the weight of a killer up toward me. I didn't wait. I raised the brick and smashed it down on his right hand with every bit of adrenaline-fueled strength I had. He let out a guttural, animalistic scream and plummeted back down to the first roof. I heard him hit the ledge hard, and between his howls of pain he continued to threaten me. But the dead man talk sounded more desperate now. I stayed flat on my stomach, watching as he clutched his mangled hand and stumbled back to his car. He sat there for 10 minutes with the engine idling, and I terrified myself into thinking he was waiting for friends to help him get up here. But eventually, his taillights faded into the distance, and he was gone. I crawled back to the edge and looked down. "Hey, are you okay?" A faint and broken voice answered. "Help! I can't walk. I'm bleeding badly." I told her my name was Jimmy. She said her name was Julie. I shouted down that my sister was named Julie, trying to keep her tethered to reality. She could barely speak. Every few minutes, her voice would grow fainter. She said her head was bleeding and that she was freezing. I peeled off my favorite worn-out Cubs sweatshirt and dropped it. I watched it flutter down, landing just a few feet from her. She reached out, pulled it under her head for a pillow, and thanked me. We talked all through the night. I kept asking her questions to keep her awake, and she did the same for me. When the sun finally began to peek over the horizon, a car pulled in, the school custodian. He ran to Julie, who was still conscious, but she was pale as a ghost. I yelled down the details, telling him her boyfriend had done it. The sirens arrived shortly after. They took Julie to the hospital, and the custodian helped me down from my perch. At the hospital, the police took my statement while other officers tracked the guy down. They found him at his parents' house with his hand heavily wrapped, and he claimed he'd hurt it working on a car. They arrested him for attempted murder, and later on he was found guilty. A week later, Julie's parents called. They told me that if I hadn't been there, Julie would have gone into shock and died on that cold pavement. She had broken ribs, a broken leg, and a shattered knee. But my parents told them the truth, that Julie had saved my life too, by keeping me focused and calm while the killer was stalking me in the dark. A year later, Julie and her parents came to my house. Julie had recovered nicely and looked great. She gave me a brand new Cubs sweatshirt and a hug that I can still feel to this day. As the years passed, I still played sports with my boys behind Jefferson School, but the rules had changed. If the ball went over the roof, the game was over and we'd play again the next day. The Strange Things I Found Out in the Middle of the Desert by Signet Society. The first series of strange things was when my buddy and I were hiking a trail in southern Arizona. There was a series of small ridges surrounding the trail, so we decided to hike up one to check out the views of the area. We were walking on top of the ridge when we stumbled across a tattered backpack filled to the brim with rusted-out food cans. There was some other random garbage that definitely indicated someone was staying up on the ridge for a long time. We became a bit cautious, but the stuff all looked like it had been left behind a while ago, so we continued on our path toward the edge of the ridge where we would climb back down. When we came to the top, we found 2 more backpacks also filled completely with rusted cans. This time, the scene was a bit different. In addition to the backpacks, there was a mesh canopy, like the kind the U.S. Army would use in Afghanistan. It was set up covering a tarp with small smashed solar panels all over. Inside, facing down into the valley, were these big telescopic binoculars. I really don't know why, but I picked up the binoculars and looked into the direction they were pointing. It was aimed straight at this fenced-in property out in the desert, and for some reason, all of it kind of hit me at once that we needed to get out of there right then. We got back to our car and put the area behind us. The only things I can really think of is some normal person living out there, some border agent lookout post, or some cartel lookout post. Whatever the case, I was not interested in waiting around to find out. This next one is more interesting to me than unsettling. On another hike on that same trip, we were walking in an area south of Benson, Arizona. Along our walk, we came across a sheltered body of water with trees growing around it, kind of an oasis-looking deal. Immediately, we noticed the area had big smashed speakers in addition to a crazy amount of shotgun shells. There were small baggies and other garbage strewn about, and it was clear someone had a Desert Rager and brought every shotgun they owned. We hated to see all the garbage, but it was definitely a strange scene to stumble upon. This last one was startling at first, but ended up being kind of beautiful. Again, on the same trip, we were doing some light bouldering and rock climbing. We got to the top of the formation we'd been climbing when we came face to face with a huge male mountain goat. Our eyes immediately locked onto its big horns as it stopped and locked its eyes onto us. If it decided to charge us, we could very well have gone right off the small cliff, which would not have been good. But moments later, it began to hobble past us slowly. Its front left leg was injured, and it clearly didn't want to fight us. We stood as still as possible as it made its way wherever it was headed. And although it wasn't a threat, we were definitely tense until it was out of sight. Having worked with male goats in the past, I knew them to be a bit territorial. Things may not have been so chill if he hadn't been injured. Hey gang, thanks for listening to this episode. If you have a true scary story of any nature that you'd like me to narrate, email it to unclejosh.truescarystories@gmail.com. I read them all. If you're catching this on YouTube and you like what you heard and saw, why not give the video a thumbs up, share it with a friend, leave a comment. I'd love to know what you thought of the stories. It's all free and it all helps out with the algorithms, so I appreciate it. Follow me on social media, and if you'd like to take your support a step further, find a link to my Patreon page in the description, and consider getting some Uncle Josh and Campfire Crew merchandise. A link to my TeePublic storefront is also in the description. Everyone, be excellent to each other, and until next time, be wary of things that go bump in the night. It could be anything: a ghost, a monster, or the guy next door.